Alright guys, I've got something to show you. It's pretty unique and it lets you do something quite unexpected. This mechanical linkage was invented over 100 years ago. It's called the Chebyshev Lambda Linkage. It was first showcased at the Paris World's Fair in 1878, alongside inventions like the ice machine and electric streetlights, as well as the completed head of the Statue of Liberty. What makes it so unique is that for much of its cycle it approximates a straight line at an almost constant speed. The most important thing though is that this linkage can be used as the basis for a walking mechanism. Chebyshev himself came up with the concept and it looks something like this. Obviously I'm going to try to build this, but first let me show you how to build the linkage. First step is to build up a few blocks, then place 3 blocks lengthwise. Now we'll add a physics bearing on each side, and on one of them we place a clutch, a motor, and then we place a lever on the clutch and activate it. Next, we'll start with the smallest segment, and we'll use 2 light blue wool blocks. Then we make another segment using 5 green wool blocks. We'll place a physics bearing on top of each, and then using super glue, we glue each portion of wool blocks to their respective bearing. Now we place some blocks that will hold everything in place once we activate the bearings and imbue our segments with physics. The 2 bottom physics bearings are then activated, and now both segments are affected by physics. Next step is to add the base of the big segment using yellow wool. The physics bearing is activated, and now we'll add some blocks to guide the segment. We'll be building directly onto an activated physics object, so we won't need to use glue here. We'll place 3 more blocks and the segment will fall in place. Now we make a 3x3 square with a hole in the middle so that this bearing's physics object can fit inside. We'll place 1 block of green wool and activate the bearing. A few more adjustments and everything slides into place. We place 4 more blocks in the large segment to complete it, and then we can remove the blocks we placed down here earlier. The linkage then drops down to its natural resting position, and now we add 1 block of netherite on the end of the light blue segment to act as a counterweight. Finally, time to start it up and watch it go. In case you don't want to build the whole thing yourself but still want to play around with it, I've made a schematic to make things easier. Here's how to set that up. You'll notice that not everything is pre-built. This is because the game has trouble with recognizing blocks that are on bearings that are on top of other bearings. For that reason, we have to build part of it ourselves. Place your schematics up a few blocks from the ground, then activate the 4 bearings. Next, build the yellow segment like this. It should be 10 blocks high when it's done. We'll add a stone block on one side so that it'll fall in that direction when we're ready. Break the supporting block and it'll fall onto the green segment. Break blocks as needed to guide it into place, and then complete the segment with a few wool blocks. Now you can flick the lever and watch it go. Now's the part where I start working on the Plantigrade Walking Machine. I start by putting 2 linkages side by side in a mirrored configuration. Then I start on the horizontal segment that should, in theory, synchronize both parts. Once I turn this on, the red segment should ideally be level with the ground the whole time. However, in practice it turns out a little bit different than expected. Somehow the red segment managed to pop out of place. It seems that tolerances aren't as tight as I had expected. I've been told that the cubes are actually modeled as if there were 8 spheres stacked in a 2x2x2 manner, and so they can sort of slip over each other. I decided to go to the internet for help and found an alternate design that seems to work better. This one adds more constraints to the system, so hopefully it should work a little bit better. When I finally got it started up, it kept collapsing. This happened a bunch of times, but I'll show you one time that it happened as well as my efforts to get all the parts back into place. Here you can see me placing heavier blocks onto the segments to get them properly oriented. I eventually realized that the reason everything kept breaking was because the left yellow segments were trying to orient themselves the wrong way whenever I activated the motor. To fix this, I put some heavier blocks on the top left red segment. I put everything back into place one last time, and now when I start everything up, it behaves as expected. Now that I have one side working, I can mirror it and add the legs. I actually have to start over, since I hadn't turned the base into a physics object before activating the bearings, and the game apparently does not like that. It's not a huge deal though, since I already know how I'm going to build this. My path to building the walking machine was fraught with mishaps. When I returned to continue working on it, I was met with this bug that made the physics bearings break off. As if that wasn't bad enough, the whole build decided to fly into the sky. Luckily, I had started recording with replay mod as soon as I entered my world, so I was able to go back and render this shot. I didn't give up and I started over with a slightly different design. This time I used some stickers to connect some of the segments together. It results in a more solid connection than putting a slot in a hole as I've been doing so far. Though, for some reason the sticker method doesn't always work. I finally got another iteration of the walking machine ready to test, and I moved it onto solid ground. I unfortunately ran into some problems getting it off the construction platform, and despite my best efforts the machine collapsed, either from its own weight or due to the angle with which it hit the ground. I'll have to be more careful next time I try to move this thing. I tried my best to fix the machine, but now it was fighting against gravity, and it was impossible to get the segments back into place without them popping out due to the stress. My walking machine was now like a wounded animal, and I had to take action to either help it out or to put it out of its misery. So I took the drastic step of using the gravitron to pick it up and place it back on the construction platform to fix it, and for a brief moment it looked like it might work and I'd be able to save it. But the whims of the physics engine took over and decided that it would instead be put out of its misery. I decided that I would try again, though I started to wonder if maybe I had dreamed too big and that this walking machine was too complex for Valkyrien's Clockwork to handle. This time, I would proceed with the utmost care as I learned from my previous mistakes. This is the start of attempt number 3. I'm gonna do something. I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but if I just have a piston, honestly all I need is to be able to push myself up when I fall down. So next time I fall down, I'll just activate this and then I can repair it without scrapping my world. So, okay, I'm gonna break these off, and then I'm going to copy this world so I don't have to do all this over again. My decision to add a moving platform proved fruitful as I kept running into problems that I needed to fix. I continued to make changes to my design and I started to feel like I was getting close to a working version. I made a few more changes like strengthening the joints and placing some blocks on the bottom to catch it if it fell. I then made a few more tweaks and then suddenly, okay, so obviously I was super thrilled when my machine started to walk, even though it's kind of jerky and just kind of hops and drags itself forward. But I think this might be the first ever Minecraft walking machine that actually uses physics, at least that I've ever seen. I would have never have guessed that this was even possible when I first started playing Minecraft over a decade ago, but thanks to mods like Valkyrien, Clockwork, and Create, this is now reality. This was a time-consuming project, but I'm happy with the results even if it's not perfect. So actually, a proper Plantigrade walking machine stays level for the entire time it's walking. To achieve that, I would have had to have synced up both sides, but if I did that, then it would not have been able to turn. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and if you're not already, then please consider subscribing and activating notification. Every little bit helps, and if you're already subscribed, thank you. I really appreciate it. Oh, and I do plan on making a follow-up video where I'll give a more in-depth explanation on how the Plantigrade machine works. When that's done, I'll put up a link right here. Thank you for watching.